Welcome everybody back to the Kicks Factory episode. Thank you so much welcome back to the Kicks Factory show. Sorry about that. Real early here in the morning. Um it's appreciate all the support with the show so far, and we got another great one here for you today. Man, I got to introduce this gentleman, this mentor, friend, brother from another, someone who I've looked up to for a very, very long time, making always has something interesting, going on in the footwear space. Been doing some amazing things with the Pensole School, and then just giving back to young people. It's been amazing and great to see. I would like to welcome to the show, to today's episode, Mr. Dwayne Edwards. How are you today? Good morning.
I'm good, bro. It's early, but it's
I
good
know.
though. I do
Yeah,
my best work in the morning early, so I'm all right.
I hear you. I hear you. It's good to see you. It's really good to see you. How's everything going, man? How's your 2021 been going after a crazy 2020? Like, how you feeling?
I feel good, man. I mean, I'm naturally an introvert, so all of 2020 was perfectly fine with me, and carrying on in 21 is perfectly good with me. If I didn't have to talk, I wouldn't. And if you didn't have to see me, you wouldn't see me. So I'm good, man. No, I'm
I
good.
hear you. I hear you. I can relate to that too, man. It was, for I feel like 2020 was really revealing of everyone's characters, or of individuals' character, and really sort of showed who they are, and the
Oh yeah.
introverts versus the extroverts, and sort of who could handle it the best. I think really sort of, show that. Although it was tough regardless, but it was
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of people can say they learned a lot about themselves in the last
I
year
hope
for
so.
sure.
Yeah, dude. I hope so. I hope they took some time to pay attention to what was going on, because to quote D. Wells from OSD, he's like, he called it the Great Reset, and
Mm,
and I love how he kind of looked at it through that lens, because I think that's exactly what it was. Both, I think, personally and professionally, you had a
mhm.
chance to actually stop and
Yeah,
reset. How you approach and how you move forward. And I know for me, for sure, dude. Just I think going at the pace that I was going at, and probably most of people was going at, like, it's not sustainable. And it made me realize, like, if I don't have to be there, I'm not going to be there. I'll be in front of a screen. I won't be on a plane. And
mhm.
so from that perspective, it was great. And then business wise too, man, it allowed us to focus on some things that we had thought about and wanted to do, but didn't have the time to do. And
Mhm.
shit, 2020 gave us time.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
so we took
That's right.
advantage of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. Well, let's jump right into it. I wanna sort of tell a little quick story before, we get into the interview. I don't know if you remember this, but just kind of talking about our history, I was thinking about, the first time that we met and connected, and I think I was an intern at Adidas.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I was an intern at Adidas, and I used to somehow, I don't know how this happened, but somehow I used to be able to sneak over on the Nike campus and hang out with you in the studio, in the Jordan studio, with like Jason
Yep.
and Octavio and those guys, and just sort
Yep.
of and just observe, just kind of be a fly on the wall. It was after hours, but you guys were still there, sort of burning
Yep.
the midnight oil and working. I think that was like 2004, I want to
Yep.
say. So that was quite a while ago. So that was those are really important moments and memories that I cherish till this day, because I feel like it was really one of the first times that I seen people that look like me working on the type of product that you guys were in that Jordan category. And it was just amazing. As I don't know, I probably was like 19 or something like that at the
Mhm.
time, 18, 19 years old at the time. And it was really cool just to see that, and have something to continue to aspire to. So it was
Right.
great. Those are moments that I keep very close to me.
Yeah, man. That was when there was no security on the Nike campus.
Yeah, yeah.
When
Can't do that today.
Yeah, nah,
That's
nah.
funny.
Yeah. I mean, Actually, I remember my first time visiting the campus. I wasn't an employee, and I just walked around the whole campus, sat
Mhm.
down in the. They had like this little
Mm.
like Cheers, kind of pub setup. Sat and ate lunch. Like no one said anything. Like it was
Yeah.
actually pretty interesting to be able just to freely walk around the whole place. But
Yep.
yeah, that was back when there was no security. Now, shit, you can
Yeah.
barely get into the lobby.
Forget about it now, man. Forget about it.
Yeah,
You can't even do that. You can't do that today. Um,
yeah.
you were listening to the Kicks Factory show. I am here with Dwayne Edwards. How long were you at Nike? How long was your career there?
2000. I started there a little after April, actually April 4th, 2000, and then I left April 1st, 2011.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
uh,
a nice
quite a
11-year
bit of time.
stretch. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice
Nice.
11-year stretch. And first year was in ACG, and then moved up to Jordan because Jordan and ACG were in the same building, in the Jerry Rice building. ACG was on
Right.
the third floor and Jordan was on the fourth floor. So I moved up to the
Mhm.
Jordan floor, and like within a little less than a year when I was there.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah,
And you've worked on all kinds of product. I think the 21s, 23s, many other shoes at Nike, some iconic stuff there. So that's awesome. But I wanna go back to the beginning. So you're from Los
yeah.
Angeles. I live in Los
Inglewood,
Angeles now.
Inglewood. Yep.
Inglewood.
Yep.
Where tell me about what you remember growing up. What was that like? What were some of your dreams like? I want to take a deep dive back into that time.
Yeah, this is so. I make the distinction of Inglewood for people who live in the city. They know there's a separation. There's parts of LA I can't go to, and there's parts of Inglewood people can't go to as well, right? And
Yeah.
so for me, like that, growing up in the '80s, like Inglewood was one of the more dangerous cities in America. And for me, just growing up in it, it was normal. But at the same time, being able to draw, it wasn't the cool, sexy thing that my other friends did, right? Where my other
Right.
friends play ball, bang, so dope. Some of them had regular jobs, but for
Mhm.
me, like I was in these two different worlds where I was in this world of I could do this thing that I didn't really want to show anyone because it wasn't looked upon as the cool thing to do, far as drawing. In my other world was playing sports. And so growing up in Inglewood, the Forum where the Lakers played, that was only about a 5-minute walk from my house. And then
Mhm.
when I got to high school, the Lakers practiced at my high school because they didn't have
Oh,
practice facilities back then. So
oh,
I
wow.
mean, we would see Magic and Kareem and Worthy and all those guys practicing on the same floor that we played on. And so that
Wow.
idea of being a professional athlete was like staring us right in the face.
Wow.
So for me though, it was always still that balance of being an artist and playing ball. And I remember the first time I drew some sneakers was actually a football cleat. It was a pony football cleat that Franco Harris wore from the Pittsburgh Steelers back in '81. And
Wow.
I was drawing anything I could see. And then once I saw that, it was hard to draw a foot. And so I just focused and gravitated on drawing shoes all through middle school on little 3x5 index cards. When I should be doing my math work, I was drawing sneakers in the class. Teacher would always take my little sketches from me, put them in her
Mm.
drawer, and so that really kind of started that idea of becoming a sneaker designer. Even though I had no reference for if that was a job. I mean, I knew someone did it because the shoe showed up, but I had no access to Google, right? So there was no Google,
Right.
there was
Yeah.
no social media. Like I couldn't jump online and figure out, okay, who's out there, what should I do, how should I go about it? None of that
Mm.
existed. But for
Mhm.
me, it was just something that became who I was. That became my identity, and that led me to start customizing. Because back then, Nikes only came out in like white, silver, and white, black,
Mhm.
and all black. Like that was it.
Mm.
And so my high school colors were green and white. And so I would go to the shoe repair shop, get some green dye, go to this spot that was called Builder's Emporium, which was before Home Depot, and get duct
Wow.
tape, an X-Acto blade. And I would basically tape up my shoe, leave my swoosh there, dye it green, come back to school with sneakers nobody ever seen before.
And
And once
everybody
I
is
saw
probably
that,
tripping.
yeah, or they completely do because they
Yeah.
knew it wasn't available. So they was like,
Yeah.
how'd you get the connect? Right. And
Yeah.
so that became, once I got that energy from other people, that became my drug. Like I had to always have something new, something different that people never seen before on my feet.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I never heard that before. That's really cool. And the story of being the forum in your backyard and
Oh
seeing those
yeah, man.
guys practice at your school, that's awesome. Who would you say some of your mentors were at the time? Was it those some of those players on those team, other people on those Lakers teams, or people that you grew up with in the neighborhood? Who were some of the people that you looked up to?
It was interesting because I lived in two worlds where if you're and you know this, if you're a designer or if you're an artist and you don't have someone that can explain to you the difference between the two, then most of the time people discourage you from doing it, right? And
Right.
so I would say my first and still to this day is my mom, even though she's
Mhm.
no longer here, but she was the first one that really kind of said, hey, you know what, if you want to pursue this, keep working on it, keep trying to do it so you can get better at it. And then I had two older brothers that were also born with the same gift to be able to draw anything they could see. So they passed that on to me, where they were always giving me critiques and feedback and showing me, different techniques. So I would say my early on mentors or people I looked up to were my mother and my two older brothers, and ironically, none of them are here to this day.
Mhm.
But it was interesting how they were the only ones I could talk to because they were the only ones that understood what this was.
Right.
After that,
Mm.
it became the boys in the hood, really. I mean, it was the dudes who played ball, the dudes who sold dope, the dudes who banged. My other
Mhm.
best friends who lived across the street that I play sports with, like it just became my surroundings where,
Yeah.
as black folks growing up in cities, like you don't grow up with doctors and lawyers next door. Right? You don't grow up
Right.
with that, right? So you don't have a chance to see what's possible. But I
Yep.
did grow up to this brother named Famous Amos.
Mm.
So if I don't know who
The
Famous
famous
Amos is,
Amos?
the
Yeah.
Famous Amos, the dude who made
Okay.
cookies, right? And
Wow.
so
Yeah,
he
okay.
stayed one door away from me, but me and my friends,
What?
we were like, oh, he's just the dude who sold cookies. We didn't know he owned the cookie shop. Like we didn't know what an entrepreneur was. He was just the dude. Whenever we saw him, he always had cookies for us, but we never
What? Yeah.
connected the dots. And
Yeah.
and so
That's
for it was
that's
until much
crazy.
later. Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
wasn't until much later where it was like, oh shit, like he actually had his own business, right? And
That's
but for us
crazy.
growing up, we didn't think about it. I mean, we weren't thinking about it at all. So I would
Yeah.
say, yeah, early mentors were yeah, my immediate family, and then the people that was right outside that door. And most of the time it wasn't good, but if you played ball and you want to do something different, then they kind of protected you in a lot of ways too.
Right.
So you didn't
Right.
get caught up in some of the stuff they got caught up in. But yeah,
Exactly.
early mentors, it would say those folks, man. It wasn't
Yeah.
until I
I wanna
started working where I understood it.
Yeah, I wanna circle back to that, but we're gonna take a short break. We gotta pay some bills, and when we
All
come
right.
back, we're gonna continue this conversation with Mr. Dwayne Edwards.
This is Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukian Network.
Today we have Jeanette Lenoir with us, award-winning journalist who has a very, very impressive background and story.
We talk a lot about humanity, but we forget that without culture, there can be no humanity. So the two go hand in hand. It shows up in redlining. It shows up in Jim Crow. It shows up in barricades. It shows up in circling the wagon. This is America. This is what Black folks and other minorities have had to endure being part of this country. Look at Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof shot 9 people in a church, and they bought him a hamburger before they took him to jail. There are more people of color in the world than there are so-called white people.
Kadzukian. Check out all your Kadzukian favorites now. Download the Kadzukian app, available on Android and iOS.
Welcome back to the Kicks Factory Show. I'm here with Dwayne Edwards. I want to pick back up on a couple things that you just said. One, you were talking about the street hustlers, the gangbangers, the people that were in your neighborhood when you were growing up in Inglewood, and them sort of protecting those who were playing ball. You always hear those stories. Was there ever a point in time where some of your peers who did those things saw the talent in you and decided to, or said, hey, we have to look out for him. He's drawn and sketching. We may not understand where he could go with it, but he's doing something different. Did that ever happen?
Yeah, it happened both, at home on my street, and then it also happened at school as well, where, some of my best friends who live right across the street from me, who I've known since single digits, like our immediate connection was not about banging and doing anything. It was really just being a normal kid playing sports and doing dumb shit in the neighborhood, right? But
yeah,
there was folks on the block that sold dope, right? And so we knew who they were because we grew up with them, but they never brought that necessarily around us or encouraged us to connect with them. But they would be the same ones we would play ball with too, right? So it was like just a natural occurrence that we would be connected. And then growing up, in the city, you would just randomly see stuff, and things will just happen. Where I remember vividly, this one day, this four houses down, a friend of mine, his sister got beat up by an ex-boyfriend, and then my boys from Crenshaw side of LA came over because they was about to get him, and so they rolling deep. Police was already outside. Dude gives me the gun as soon as he saw the police there. And so he gives me the gun because he didn't want the gun because he was going to help out, his sister. I'm like, shit, now I got this. I got to stash it somewhere, right? So being in the vicinity, right, shit could just happen. And like that moment, like I could have went down for something like that. So it was just being in you are who you hang around with in a lot of instances, right? And that was just one of those instances where I was in my normal spot on my block and something jumped off, and I was a part of that situation indirectly.
Yeah, no, it's interesting when you think back on moments like that. I could definitely recall moments where being in the wrong place at the wrong time, but still somehow got lucky. And you think back on it, you're like, man, how the hell did I get out of that? Or did it, or did it not go sideways like super quick, and that's just like how the fine line, I feel like that we as Black men, and Black people have to walk on many of the times, so
all the time,
all the time. I want to jump into the story of how you got of how Nike happened. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I'll tell you, so when I was in high school, that's where I really thought that being a sneaker designer was real. And I went to my guidance counselor. It was my senior year. I figured out what I want to do with my life. And I go to her and say, I got it. Can you help me figure this thing out? And I want to design sneakers. And so she's like, nah, Dwayne, no Black kid from Inglewood will ever design sneakers. Like, why are you even thinking like that's an option? And she goes, your best bet is to get out of Inglewood and find a steady job and do something else with your life. And, so that was, if you're in high school and you go to your guidance counselor for guidance and that's what she gives you, where it's like you kind of step back, you can go a couple different ways with it, where I can go back and just succumb to my neighborhood and where I'm from. I can just ignore her and try to figure it out on my own. Or I can just try to persevere and keep going. And I kind of did all three, to be honest with you, where it made me want to prove her wrong, though. So that was the thing that really sparked, was just because she didn't have any aspirations or dreams, she put that on me. And I wanted to prove her wrong somehow. I didn't know how, but I wanted to prove her wrong. And I would say a good 4 months after, I was working at McDonald's. At lunch break, I'm looking at LA Times for a new job. And the smallest ad you can place in the LA Times is about 1/4 of an inch by an inch, a small little classified ad. And it was for a Reebok design competition. So for me, like, that was a full page ad, because I was like, shit, like I can get a job doing this. And so I entered it. You have to mail everything in. So you call a phone number, and the phone number gives you the address to mail everything in. And so I did that. About 2 months later, Reebok calls me and say, hey, come down to our offices. We want to talk to you. So I go down. They had an entertainment office in Santa Monica. And so I ended up winning the design competition. The problem was I was 17. And so they thought that they already thought I graduated from college. And I'm like, nah, I'm still at Inglewood. I'm about to graduate next week. And they're like, well, they go, well, oh, okay, well, we weren't expecting that to happen. Maybe you should, come back to us after you finish college. And I'm like, college? Like, that's not an option for me, dude. Like, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. That's not an option. Well, but if it was, like, what college should I go to? And they couldn't tell me. And so I kind of, at that moment, I kind of just gave up on the whole idea. Graduated, started working temp at this accounting firm. My second assignment was LA Gear. Went there as I'll just file papers in the accounts payable department. Then they start putting these wooden suggestion boxes in every department for the employees to talk to the company and share ideas. Again, no email, right? And so I started putting sketches in the suggestion box every day. Like, put the sketch in there, go file papers every day. 6 months in, I get a page on the intercom system, because back then, if someone needed you, they would say it for the whole company to hear. And so I get a page, Dwayne Edwards report to the president's office. And I'm like, shit, like, did I really mess up filing papers that bad that the president of the company wants to talk to me about it? And so I go in, and, first thing I did was, like, apologize. And he's like, no, what are you apologizing for? And I was like, well, you called me in here for a reason, I guess. And he was like, no, I have all of your sketches. He had all 180 of my index cards sitting on his desk. Wow. And so he'd asked me about what school did I go to. And I was like, I just graduated from Inglewood a couple months ago. And he was like, Inglewood where? I was like, no, Inglewood High School. And he was like, well, all right. He goes, well, I'll tell you what, if you want a job here as a designer, I'll give you a shot and see what happens. And so shortly after my 19th birthday, I got a job as a professional footwear designer at LA Gear in Marina Del Rey. And that was really the start in '89. And all through that time, I was at LA Gear. And what was wild was Kareem, remember Kareem was practicing at my high school. He was signed to LA Gear. And so I had a chance to sit with Kareem as a designer and go over sketches and colorways and things like that, which was wild. Then Karl Malone, and then Shaquille O'Neal wore LA Gear at LSU as well. Wow. So here I am, not knowing it at the time. You fast forward to the future, I had a chance to work with the #1 leading scorer in the NBA, #2, and #3. Yeah. And then if you add MJ, that's another one, right? Exactly. So,
and that's crazy. Talk about a full circle moment, right?
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. So I was at Gear for a minute, and then I left because the owner of the company, who was really my first professional mentor, Robert Greenberg, who owns Skechers to this day, he was the one who really took a chance on me. And he left, so I left. And then I left and moved to Detroit for almost a year. That was interesting. Didn't work out there, but he called me and said, hey, I got the licensing rights to do footwear for these 2 brands called Cross Colors and Karl Kani. And I'm like, okay. I know those dudes because they were downtown LA. And so I
Yeah.
come back to LA to design footwear for Crossco's and Carl Kanai. So all through like 92 to 96, 97, I did all the Crossco's and Carl Kanai footwear that came
So
out.
what's
So
going
now,
through your head at this time? It was like, it seems like there was this sort of slow burn, right? Up until that point where then you see that article in the paper, that small Reebok article about the design competition, which I'm assuming was probably your first sort of like glimpse into, okay, there's a path. Here's a path,
oh yeah,
and I'm taking it.
oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden LA Gear, and then it's just takes off like what's going on in your mind at the time? Like, it seems like your life just completely changed in a very short period of time.
Yeah, dude, I was just going because I was just excited to do what I really wanted to do. I really didn't
Yeah.
think about success. I didn't really think about what was going on. I was just in the moment. As I get older, I start to reflect on, damn, like that was a crazy period of time, because not only coming full circle with Kareem, during that time, if you look up ads with Cross Colors and Carl Kanai, you'll see Tupac, you'll see Biggie, you'll see Puffy, you'll see Dre, you'll see Nas. I was working with them, doing footwear for them when they were in their early 20s, just like I was in my early 20s.
Wow.
And so like it didn't register to what was going on. I just loved what I was doing, and they were on this music side. Again, you fast forward, you don't know that they're going to be legends, in the hip hop industry and business, right? To be able to have Tupac wear shoes that you worked on, or Biggie wear shoes that you worked on, and those two dudes are icons, as you know. Like it didn't register at the time. I was just young and having fun and excited to be doing what I was doing.
That's great, man. That's amazing. There's so much there that I want to take a deeper dive into, but we're going to take a short break. You're listening to the Kicks Factory podcast. I'm here with Dwayne Edwards, and we'll be back shortly.
How you doing, Cellarfield Nation? We're here with the co-founder of Cheers Creative. Are you ready to say it?
Yes, I am.
You're not nervous?
No.
Your heart ain't beating?
No.
Hand ain't sweating?
No.
All right, then let's make it happen.
It wasn't until I had a business, I started a business, that I had to learn, this artist had to learn how to sell. That's what brand activation is. How do we activate our brand in this space? Your brand is not your product. You can have a product to sell, but that's not your brand. Brand is how you make people feel. Once I saw every step in the services that I was providing, I became more comfortable in charging the prices that I needed to charge, because that's when I realized I am doing more than providing design.
Download the Kazukian app so you can hear all these great podcasts.
Kazukian. Check out all your Kazukian favorites now. Download the Kazukian app, available on Android and iOS.
Welcome back to the Kicks Factory show. I am here with Dwayne Edwards. Man, that was a lot that we covered, and that was great. One question I like to ask that I would love to run by you. I asked the guests on this show is, did you find footwear design, or did footwear design find you?
Oh, it found me, man. It found me. I've said before, a number 2 pencil designed my life, and it saved my life. Because if I didn't have that as an outlet, I probably wouldn't be here, man. I mean, growing up in Inglewood, like getting to 18 is a win, and getting to 21, you successful, right? Just getting to those numbers, and to be able to have, that simple instrument as a pencil be my vehicle to getting out of the city, and then allow me even to go back and try to reach kids that were just like me. I would say it absolutely found me and made me realize the gift, because a lot of times when people are born with the gift to draw, they don't always utilize it. And I was just blessed enough to recognize it early enough, and then have an opportunity to utilize it as a career.
Yeah, that's great. No, that pencil was your basketball. It was your baseball. It was your football.
It was everything. It was everything.
That's what got you out. That's awesome. That's great. So So I want to jump into and talk a little bit about Pensole. Want to spend a little time talking about that. I remember running into you in, I think, Las Vegas in like 2008, 2009 ish, and you were like, "Man, I'm starting a school," and I was like,
Yep.
"What?" Like, and you're telling me a little bit about it or how you wanted to get that going. And I remember shortly after that, going to one of your first classes or just sort of observing one of your first classes. I think it was at Parsons in New York City, and kind of being that for sort of, it was amazing just to be there to see you sort of kicking that off and then seeing where it is today. Where did the vision, where did that start? Where did it come from to want to do that?
It was really from when I was 17, and this is what I wanted to do. And I couldn't find a school that did just footwear. Growing up in LA, there's a design school called Otis, and back in the 80s, Otis and Parsons were connected. So it was called Otis Parsons. And they did apparel all day long. Back in the 80s, like downtown LA was the garment district. Like that was where a lot of the brands produced their apparel. And so the only outlet I had was that, but I didn't want to do apparel. I wanted to do specifically sneakers. And so when that wasn't an option, and I still was blessed to get into the industry, I've always held on to that thought of like, man, it'd be great to have a footwear design school. And so it really started, when I was 17, at least the idea popped in. Once I got to Nike, I was already 12 years into the industry. And once I got there, during that time, the internet happened, and then blogs happened, and there was a blog called Nike Talk, right? And so you would jump on Nike Talk to read the kids, destroy your designs, and just talk shit randomly about everything that comes out Nike related. But then people start dropping shoes on there, sketches on there, and I remember one of them was Alpha Project. So there was this guy named Alpha Project that would always post up sketches. And so I started, reaching out to him like, hey, I love how you draw, try this, do this, just giving them some tips and some insights. And that just led to kind of mentoring people, while I was at Jordan, with the idea of helping them get into Nike either as my intern or as a full-time designer. And when I started doing that idea of teaching kind of came about because I just saw it as just mentoring people. And once I started doing that, it became what I really wanted to do for the rest of my career. And so doing that for 10 years and helping people get internships at Jordan and then helping them get hired at Nike, I was like, man, this is what I want to do with the rest of my career. So I took a sabbatical, I retired, I quit my job as design director in Jordan and took 8 weeks off to test this idea of, okay, what would a footwear design school look like? And so I basically modeled the school the same way we work. And in real time, we only got about 2 weeks to make something happen. And so I crafted the class exactly the way that you would work. And so I brought in 40 students, all on my own dime, did it at the University of Oregon in Portland. And that 2 weeks was amazing because it allowed me to fall back in love with design because the corporate side took a lot away from me. And I didn't know how much it took away from me. And so being in that environment of being able to share stuff and remember stuff that I forgot that I knew, and then have other people come in and other designers come in and share insights and share feedback, and just seeing the pure joy that these kids had, it made me want to stay in that moment. And so that first class, and it was June 24th, 2010. That first class, man, that really just cemented the fact that this is absolutely what I wanted to do with the rest of my career. And then you fast forward, and I started to think about the people that I connected with on Nike Talk, and there was another site called Kicks Guide, where Alpha Project, that's Jason Petrie. So seeing Jason's work early on, and now he's gone, obviously he's the LeBron guy, right? how many other people? There's at least 10 other designers that were on Nike Talk and Kicks Guide that are now all professional designers. And then that led to Jason Maiden becoming, our intern, and Jordan. Just being able to see kind of these young people who this is what they wanted to do, but they now had an outlet for as social media and the internet to broadcast it. I knew I wasn't the only one that wanted to do this at such a young age. And that's what really sparked the idea to keep doing it.
Yeah, that's great. You're listening to the Kicks Factory show. I'm here with Dwayne Edwards. That's amazing. I mean, you were like fully, working at Nike as a designer, and then made this transition into an educator, which you explained it was, very natural because you felt like you were doing that already through the internship program. But what was maybe one of the biggest hurdles in getting that ball rolling, just being that, two completely different things from like the business and the structure side of it? Like, what were some of the hurdles and maybe a lesson learned along the way?
I think some of the hurdles I put on myself, honestly, because I'm not a product of college. I never graduated from college. I never attended college. The first time I attended or went to college was to teach. And so for me, like, I didn't feel like I belonged or had the title of teacher because I never was exposed to it on a higher level. But it was really when I went to Parsons in New York, and I had a meeting with all of the deans of that school, and I'm just tripping because I'm like, shit, I'm in this school that I couldn't even afford to go to, and they're trying to convince me to teach at that school. And so for me, it was really the just accepting the fact that what I'm doing is not teaching. I'm just sharing. I'm just sharing the knowledge that I have and the insights that I have. Beyond that, man, the only other obstacle was really just people outside of the industry understanding what it was that I was trying to do. Because when you have a business and you try to share it with people, if they can't compare it to something else, they don't understand it. And if they don't understand how it's going to make money immediately, they don't understand it. And so I stopped sharing, like I stopped talking about it. And I just started just doing it so people can see what it was going to become and see how it's going to develop. So I would say that was really the only obstacle I had, was just, people really understanding what it was. But beyond that, I won't say it came easy. It was hard as hell. Because I used all my own money. I would say that was probably the hardest part, was using my own money. But I knew I had to gamble on myself to show people what it was. And I was determined to make people come to me instead of me going to them, as far as investors or people who want to support it.
No, that's fantastic. And really good to hear those full circle moments, and sitting in the school at Parsons and whatnot. I've always believed that practical experience is the best education. I have a feeling you probably feel the same way too as well. And you were providing that, right? The way you talked about structuring your classes. Structuring your classes to be like the actual work environment that that these students are trying to get to. With that said, and now your relationships with schools and working with them, what do you think the biggest disconnect is right now between kids and education and wanting to get into footwear? What are some areas that could be improved on? What are some of the deficiencies that you might be seeing from your perspective?
That's a loaded question, man. The first one is, the education system needs to be completely blown up and started all over, because it's not structured for people to succeed. It's not structured for students to get a job. It's not structured in that way. It's structured to have kids stay there as long as possible, to keep paying that tuition that may or may not lead to a job. And that was that's the biggest disconnect I saw as an educator. And just like design, I approached teaching the same way. Like, I went all the way back to the original version of things. And when I went to the original version of education, they were called academies and institutes. And their primary purpose was to provide a place for you to gain knowledge to get a job. Like that was the really simple foundation of what education was about. And I just wanted to replicate that and bring that back because I knew the current college and university system, that's not what their philosophies are. That's not how they're structured. It's about money and keeping you there as long as possible. And they do that by diluting the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you received any pushback you feel like along the way and getting things going with Pensole?
Not really, man. That's the wild part, dude. I mean, the brands have always supported it. If the only pushback is the education system, because they're so used to their structure, they don't think my model is going to work because they can't do it actually. And so a lot of them at the beginning were doubting that it could work, but now they know that the future is the way I'm doing it because students are dropping out after their sophomore year and junior year because it's too long or it costs too much. And so for me, I eliminated those two things. Pensole, the majority of what we do is free. And the majority of what we do is short, from anywhere from 4 weeks to anywhere from 4 weeks to 12 weeks. But our 4 weeks is equivalent to a 16-week semester at a normal school. 3 months with us is equivalent to 1 year at a normal school. And then everything the kids do, it's specifically with a brand. So that 4 weeks or 12 weeks, that's a 4 or 12-week job interview.
Man, that's
for free.
priceless. That is priceless. That's literally priceless. That's amazing. You are listening to the Kicks Factory podcast, and we are going to take a short break and come back and continue this conversation with Dwayne. So we'll be back in a minute.
The more money works for you, the less you got to work for money. Let's get this paper.
Woo! Today, we have Mr. Al Pickett, financial coach and author of The Black Print.
So do you know a lot about cryptocurrency?
It's not going anywhere. We can put it that way.
What does a sales cycle look like to become a coaching client of Mr. Al Pickett?
Why do you want to learn how to invest? Why do you want to learn how to trade? That question right there kind of really sets the tone in terms of where the conversation is going to go. I really want to design something that would give people what I wish I had on the front end. All I do is follow what the price is doing, and that's what I can do.
And we have more great shows coming your way, so stay tuned for more.
Kadzukian. Check out all your Kadzukian favorites now. Download the Kadzukian app, available on Android and iOS.
Welcome back to the Kicks Factory show. I am here with Dwayne Edwards. This conversation's been great. I've learned so much just about you that I haven't known before. And it's been great. I hope I'm sure the listeners are going to enjoy it too as well. But I want to jump into, or I have one question too about just about the shoe business, and want to hear your thoughts on kind of how you feel about it today, and really the differences between what it was when you got started in those sort of LA gear days versus what it is today in 2021.
You know, I honestly feel bad for the kids today because it's no fun. To me, it's no fun. Where when I was growing up, like, we found out what was available by going to the store and seeing it on the wall. Like every Saturday, like that was the field trip, right? Is to go see what was going on. And then the idea of the hunt of catching a bus for an hour to go to another neighborhood, to another mall, to bring something back, right? Or making sure you always had something fresh in your feet that no one else had. Where it's like today, like, I understand the future in technology where the accessibility is better, which I agree with that part, but people like to be like other people today. And like, I don't understand that. Like, for me, still to this day, the worst thing I ever want to happen is walk into a room and someone got the same shoes on that I have on. Like, that's like the worst thing for me. But today that seems like that's more socially acceptable. And I just think the industry is so different. It's evolved into a business, which I think is great, but I think it's also been bastardized by the companies that are in it. and the consumers are allowing the bastardization to happen by buying the product that's silly in a lot of cases.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah, different times today when you think of some of the, the StockX's of the world and some other things. Definitely different from when I was growing up too, as well. Do you see any like specific opportunities or areas in the footwear industry for designers or entrepreneurs, or do you feel that, maybe, because you see a lot of, right, independent designers and people who are
Right.
starting their own businesses, starting their own brands, some that I know that were at your school who've
Right.
gone off and done awesome things. Do you think things are should continue and trend in that direction? Do you, or a little bit of both on the other side, working under brands, working with brands? Like, how do you feel about that?
I think for a designer, the future is having your own brand.
Yeah.
And I think some people will want to continue to work at the larger organizations, which is good. Not everyone should have their own company or be an entrepreneur, because it's probably the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life. But I do think the future of our industry, if our industry is to survive and continue to be fresh and new, it's going to be the new people coming on and creating their own brands, because it's so dominated by some of the bigger brands that doesn't create parity. And that
Right.
parity is the part that's missing. That newness is the part that's missing. And I think the newness will come from the smaller companies that pop up and they create partnership deals with retailers. Because the interesting thing that's happening in the industry right now is the two people that exist that's driving it is the brand and the retailer. Neither of
Yeah.
the two people want each other. Okay. The brand is trying to sell direct, and so they can cut out the retailer. The retailer is trying to create their own product to improve their margins, so they don't want the brand, right? So you have
Right.
these two people that's controlling the whole thing that don't like each other and don't want each other, but they need each other. Where the way that it's going to solve itself is the brand is going to succeed, at least the bigger one is going to succeed in pulling out of all the retailers, where the retailer is going to be stuck with having to make a decision on, shit, I need to create some private label partnerships. I need to find some new brands to create a groundswell of smaller companies that could help get closer to the number that was taken away from them. So I do believe the future of it is smaller brands. Otherwise, it's just going to be a massive dictation of one or two brands, and that's not going to be
Yeah.
healthy for our industry at all. And
Right.
there's only so many jobs that's going to be available, and so why not, as a designer, why not create your own? Because you'll never, as a designer, you'll never get your value when you work for someone else. Never, ever, 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 ever.
No.
Like I said, not everyone should have their own company either. So find a business partner that can handle the business side of it. You take care of the creative, you do what you're good at, and then you prosper that way. But I do believe the future is smaller brands, because that's where the more chances you're going to take with product and ideas is going to come from.
Yeah.
The bigger brands
Yeah.
are too big. They can't take those chances. And so the real energy is going to come from the smaller brand. And hopefully the
Yeah.
retailer will fuel that. So they give these kids a platform to be seen, so their brands can grow.
Have you been seeing that at all? Because I know you've done some things with Foot Locker in the past and probably still
Slow.
are till today, but yeah, are you seeing these things happen? And I'm sure you're being very vocal about sharing these thoughts and ideas too as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know me, I don't. If you ask me a question, I'll give you my answer. Okay, it's
Yeah.
not the answer is mine, and
Yeah.
it is happening small, but it's not happening fast enough, and I think that's the retailer's fault. The retailer is going down a very unstable road right now. They are not moving fast enough. And because they're not moving fast enough with creating their own brands or partnering with people to have their own brands, some of them or more of them will continue to go out of business because they're
Yep.
not reacting fast enough.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. Don't be Blockbuster. um,
Exactly. There's plenty of examples of where if you don't move fast enough, you will be out of business.
Yep, exactly. You're listening to the Kicks Factory show. I'm here with Dwayne Edwards. So what's just circling back to Pensole, what's on the horizon? What's next for Pensole that's going on?
Man, we got some we got some news coming that's
Yeah.
that's gonna move the industry a bit more. It's gonna
Okay.
move corporate as far as Black folks. So my focus
Mhm.
now is to make sure that we can get more and more Black kids and brown kids into this industry. And
Mhm.
I had to leave the industry to focus in on that in order for those numbers to improve because the companies don't work hard enough to make that a possibility. And
Mm.
so we're going to take it another step further in a few months and make a pretty significant announcement that will change the landscape and give more Black and brown kids an opportunity to be educated and get into this industry. Right now, the brands only tell our kids that the only way they can be a part of this industry is if they have a ball or a mic in their hand.
Yep.
And we need to change that paradigm because the brands are not doing it fast enough. They're contributing to changing it, but they're not doing it fast enough, and they're not
Mhm.
committing to it as much as they should commit to it. And so we
Mhm.
we will continue to apply to provide opportunities to give brands an opportunity to opt in. But at the same time, we'll also provide kids an opportunity if they want to create their own brand. You can come hang out with us, and we'll help you do that too.
Mhm.
So I would say we will evolve into a larger organization, and then we'll have more options for people to choose and opt into.
Yeah, that's great. I can't wait to hear that announcement. Um, what's the what are you most proud of about Pensole?
Honestly, man, it's getting that phone call or getting that email of a former student saying, "I got the job."
Mhm.
And then that's the first part. The second part is having that same former student who's now a working professional be in a position to help out the next generation of those kids. To me,
Mm.
like that's the full circle moment, really. And that's the part that I'm most proud of is being able to have our alumni make these moves within the industry and then come back and teach at Pensole or start their own mentoring programs. Like to me, like that's what it's about, man. We when you plant those seeds are going to continue to grow and they're going to start just like a real seed, man. You have these roots that start to spread and all of a sudden it takes over the environment and that's the part that I'm most proud of is being able to see a lot of our kids be able to have a career in this industry, but yet turn back around and provide more opportunities for folks the same way they got it.
That's right. That's right. No, that's great and something that we continue to need to do more of, right? Like the passing
Oh,
down of the
absolutely.
information and knowledge. No reason to keep it all to yourself, right? Gotta share that.
Nah.
Um,
Yep.
take me inside of one of your lecture, like a lecture that you give students for, and like, what would be some advice that that you would give to a young creative who's out there that wants to blaze their own path and start their own brands or just really try and make some noise, industry? What kind of advice? What are some of the things that you share in these lectures that you give?
I would say the first one is you have to increase your creative inputs. Where what I mean by that is connect with people that are better than you and try to
Mhm.
learn from each of those people. Take 10, 15, 20% from those folks to craft your own style, craft your own presence, craft who you want to be as a creative. Don't try to do it on your own. There's people that you can tap into, hopefully, that have the knowledge that could help you get there a lot faster, but more so get there through an educated approach, right? There's no need
Mhm.
to try to reinvent the wheel from that perspective. Lean on people that you trust, but more importantly, lean on those people who have more insight and more knowledge than you do. The other piece I
Mhm.
would say is if you're trying to get into this industry and create whatever your legacy will be, is focus on being a designer that inspires others. So what I
Yeah.
mean by that is you inspire others with what you create as well as who you are as a person. Because
Mm.
obviously you're going to be inspired by somebody too, right? So at some point, you want to be that person. You want to be that person that's putting out great product, that's inspiring other people to do great product. And then hopefully you want to be that person that's inspiring other people to want to get into this industry purely based on your actions. And then the last piece I would say is leave this industry better than when you got into it. If you don't do that, the industry is not going to be as good as you want it to be because you didn't do your part in that equation.
Well said. Well said. That was great. That was really inspiring to hear. And man, this has been a great conversation. Unfortunately, we've come to the end. I wish we could continue. Maybe we might have to do a part 2 actually, because there were some other things you shared offline that we might have to dive into as well. But how can people follow you on social media or just get in touch with you at all?
Man, I am personally not on social media. The only social media I'm on is LinkedIn. The Academy is on social media. I don't even know what that handle is. I think it's maybe Pensole_Academy. I'm not sure. But me personally, if you want to reach me, the best way is LinkedIn.
Okay. Or just follow the Pensole Instagram account, which I do and I enjoy.
Follow.
So
yeah, you follow that. I don't follow it, but yeah, everyone else should.
Awesome. Old school OG Dwayne Edwards, thank you so much for joining us today. Sure. This was a pleasure. You're doing amazing things. Again, a friend, a mentor, a brother, someone I've always looked up to. I really admire and just love everything that you're doing and keep up the great work. And you're inspiring this next generation of creators as you are.
That's the goal, man. I appreciate it, dude. I'm also proud of you too, bro. I love what you're doing with the Kicks Factory, and just watching you grow and evolve over time too has been exciting as well, man.
I appreciate that. That's really an honor to hear that. Thank you so much. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us today on another episode of this very special episode of the Kicks Factory. We'll see you next time.
Kazookian. Check out all your Kazookian favorites now. Download the Kazookian app, available on Android and iOS.